Hey, I'm Shelly,
And I'm Angela,
and this is Real Talk Dating Exposed.
where we talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly of dating in your 40s.
If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe and like us below.
And if you're listening to us on audio, please subscribe as well.
Now let's get into it. Okay, let's talk about ghosting.
Yeah.
This is like a thing.
Uh-huh.
First of all, have you ever been ghosted?
I don't think I have I? I don't think
I don't think you have either. I've been ghosted once. And I don't know if it's even really considered ghosting, but I guess so. It was
I would consider it.
It was,
ghosting.
right?
Yeah.
I think he didn't get what he wanted without going too into it. We met up. We hung out after. I don't think he got what he was hoping to get out of that evening. Mm-hmm. We'll leave it there. And I kind of got the vibe that it was like he had a douchey undertone. But we still had the night together, whatever. I just don't think he got what he wanted out of it. And then the next day, it was like, hey, hope all is well. Like, he wasn't living here yet. He was living somewhere else. And he was apparently moving here. But either way, it was, hope all is well. Like, I'll hit you when I get back into town.
Also, like, he had sent you a text, but, like, your conversation, he was just like, I can't wait to hang out with you more.
Let me preface that. Yes.
Yeah.
He was listen, I've been in the dating game for like 7 years now, like consistently on and off in relationships or whatever. But he gave me the tone and context of like interest.
Yes.
Right. We can decipher that. Like I don't like grasp at straws. I just pay attention to what people say. Right. And it was very much that night during the date. All through the night was like, I can't wait to see you again. Like, I'm moving out here. We could spend time together. Granted, that's very love bomby quick, right? Like, if it's too much too soon. Yeah. But it definitely was one of
you didn't.
interest.
You didn't walk away from that being like, okay, he's never going to hear from me again. He had set the tone of like, I actually am looking forward to spending more time with you when I get back. Like, he lived here. He had a house here. He just traveled back and forth from work.
Correct.
And so when you and I were chatting through it, and I was just like, okay, it sounded like it went good. And then his last text to you was like, take care of yourself.
Yeah, like, hope you're well and take care.
He was getting on the flight, and he was just like, yeah, whatever, and then take care of yourself. And I was like, oof, that is a weird thing to say to someone when you have the expectation of coming back. And then he never.
No. Well, then I sent him one more text, like, hey, I have your t-shirt or whatever. And then he just never texted me again. So like, we don't chase, we attract here, you know, but I think the undertone after talking to our guy friends, after talking to you, after talking to a bunch of people, they're like, well, he didn't get laid. So that's, but that was the closest in 7 years that I've been like, I felt like my ego got hurt a little. I was like, who the fuck are you to ghost me?
Yeah. Do you know who I am?
Like, do you know who the fuck I am? No, I'm kidding. No, but in seriousness, like, it's just whatever it is. Like, to me, I thought I was past that point in my dating game where I was like, I can pinpoint dudes that are just looking to get laid or whatever. And I was shell shocked that I fell for something of that nature at like after 40 years old.
Well, I mean, ghosting can happen on so many different levels, right? Like, it could be a situation where like you match with someone in the apps, and then you're going back and forth a little bit, and then you don't hear from them.
Agree. Well, I feel like that's common.
Probably more common. But like, if you think about it, I mean, we've done it, right? Like, it's I don't think it's intentional. It could also be the fact that like, who knows how many people they're talking to or we're talking to, right? So it could be like you went on a date and it went great, and you're just going to like see where that goes. But like, you're not at the point where you would go back to that person and be like, hey, just want to let you know
that I went on a date. Yeah. So I feel like when you're in the apps, I get like, I don't even know if I'd consider that ghosting at that point, because you don't even know the person, right? Like, you're chatting. So like, I feel like I'm guilty of that, right? Like, I'm on the apps. We go through our phases, right? You do the same fucking thing where you're like rampaging. Like, I'm going to talk to a bunch of people. Let's just see what happens. So you get in that mode, and then freaking life happens. And like, a deal falls out in real estate, or like something happens with your kids, and before you know it, you haven't checked your app in freaking 2 weeks. And then you're like, holy shit.
Right.
You know, so, but I feel like at that point, that's not really I don't know if that would be my definition of ghosting, because I feel like that's just like the lay of the land when you're on an app.
But what if they set up a date with you in the app? What if they're just like, let's meet this Thursday at so such and such place, like this time.
Okay, well then.
And then and then you don't hear from them. But like, also, I'm not reaching out to confirm that, but like, you don't hear from them. Like, that's kind of ghosting a little bit. It doesn't
because at least now there's a plan in place that's not being executed because he's not reaching out again. And I think you and I come from the same sentiment that like the man should probably check in before a date, like the day before, to be like, hey, looking forward to seeing you, even if it's through the app.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I forgot what I was going to say.
Okay, but I have something to say.
Okay.
If you meet someone though,
like,
would you ever go on a date, and you have gone on dates where you have a decent date, but you know you have no interest in seeing them again? Would you ghost them after that?
No.
Would you ever say like, hey, had a great time. Oh, me too. And then just like, I feel like you got to loop it up. Like we loop it up. I feel like if you're not interested.
Yeah.
I mean, would you ever just not text them, or would you leave it where it's like, okay, yeah, I had a good time too, and then just hope they don't hit you up again and then don't hit them back? Or do you like, because that happens with people. I feel like people get ghosted after their dates, and then they're left wondering like, why?
What did I do?
Yes. What did I do?
And
how are they
take
feeling?
it personal?
Yes.
So here's a couple thoughts on that. First, I think it shows the level of communication that they're capable of, right? Like, you and I communicate on a high level. And I, just like you said, I don't want to ever feel like there's just like this undealt with person in the background, right? Like, I don't
Even if it's just one date, you still feel like.
No, I feel obligated. Like, that's a human on the other side. They spent time with me, which is an investment. They could have been doing other things. Maybe there was some money involved with dinner or whatever. Like, I just look at that as a person, and how would I want to be treated, right? It's that rule of like, treat people how
you want to be treated.
Right. And so thank you. And it's normally like, thank you so much for your time last night. Like, had a great dinner, had a great drink. Like, it was great to getting to know you. But at this time, I'm not feeling the connection that I'm looking for, and I wish you the best of luck. Period. End of story. Like, if there was something that person did that like annoyed you, there's no point in telling them. Or if like you didn't find them attractive, I don't feel the need to give them details, because I'm not going to be with that person again. I don't need to like.
But you're still wrapping it up.
Yeah, but it's just that general comment of like acknowledging the time that we spent together, and then like, best of luck.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't have to be anything hard, but I think a lot of people avoid that because maybe
it's uncomfortable.
It makes them uncomfortable, or they don't know how to communicate, or they just don't even realize that that's a fucking human on the other side of the text here.
And it's easier to just run from it, or just avoid it and ignore
but like,
it.
is that surprising to you based on like the people that we've gone on dates with? Like, a lot of people don't know how to communicate, because communication requires vulnerability, and a lot of people are uncomfortable with that, right?
Agree. But I feel like, think about old school dating, like, it's so much more of a thing now because it's easier to do, but like, you couldn't get away with that shit in like the 1980s or 90s. Like, we didn't have apps to be talking to people. Like, you genuinely had to connect, and you weren't given the opportunity to kind of, you'd have to pick the phone up. Like, it just wasn't a thing, right?
Yeah.
I just feel like it goes back to that instant gratification of like, it's so easy to be in, and then it's so easy to be out, that people are losing that like ability to communicate that we talk about all the time. So don't you feel like you see that a lot in guys we go out with, like the inability to dialogue?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah.
I feel like you experienced that quite a bit.
Yeah. I mean, I had a date, last week?
Yeah.
I mean, he could talk, but he talked the entire time. But when we left, I was just like, oh my gosh, he knows nothing about me.
Yeah. So it's one thing to talk. It's another thing to be like in a communicative dialogue with someone on a date, right?
Yeah. But just like, I mean, I left that date and I like sent you that voice note, because I just feel like in that moment, not a lot of men have this platform that they can like get their words out. Right. So when they have a date with someone and they're just like, oh, they're asking questions and like curious, it's just like they just want to like get it all out.
Like diarrhea of
just get it all out. And it feels so good. They get it all out. But it's like, dude, you didn't even ask me
one question.
I do for work.
Yeah.
Like, if I have kids, like, you don't know anything about me, but I just learned your whole life journey. Right. So I don't know.
But how did it leave off after that? Obviously you weren't interested, but
I literally said, I'll be in touch.
And that was it.
I did not get in touch.
But is that ghosting then?
No, because he didn't reach out to me. I don't feel like that's ghosting. Do you think it's
kind of?
ghosting?
I mean, no, because you left it on, I will be in touch. I guess that's kind of, you're buttoning it up a little without having to. Yeah, I mean, I guess if you haven't heard from him. So I feel like ghosting would be if he reached back out to you.
Yeah, if he had reached
and said like, hey, Ange, what are you doing this Friday? And then you just didn't respond.
Yeah, I mean, I already knew, like, if he had reached out to me, I would have been like, thank you so much for the time, the drink, whatever.
Like, I don't feel a connection.
Yeah, but I wouldn't take the time and energy to be like, just so you know, like going forward, you probably want to get better at asking questions and getting to know someone. I won't spend the time and energy doing that. That's not for me.
Yeah.
Because who knows? He might go on the date the next time, and the girl's
he's
just
the
like,
greatest thing
"Oh my
since
god, he's
sliced bread."
amazing! Like
Yeah.
he has this cool story," and not
You were
even
just not feeling it.
understand the fact that he doesn't know anything. Yeah,
But I
so-
do feel like it's different levels of expectations, right? I
Yeah.
feel like you and I have high levels of expectations, even when we're on a date one, in terms of understanding whether or not someone's able to communicate even on that date the way we would want them to show up, right? Like we want a back and forth dialogue. We want someone interested. We want to hear about them, but we want them to want to know about us too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I don't think maybe he would meet someone that would be happy with his level of talk and not,
Yeah.
interest on the other side.
Now, I will say there have been times where like I've had that conversation text where I'm like, okay, thank you so much for the night, blah, blah, blah. Best of luck.
Yeah.
And then they keep reaching out. I will just block them.
Yeah. If you have to.
Yeah. If it becomes like because I've already given you the consideration of like communicating. Now you're just not even respecting or like hearing what I had to say. And again, going back to, I'm not going to spend time and energy into someone. So there have been people I've blocked.
I mean, I've blocked
What are your
plenty in my
thoughts on
day.
that?
No,
Yeah.
yeah, I have. I think when it starts getting a little like,
Yeah.
to me, it's boundaries, right? Like if you're making it clear about where you're standing and they're not respecting those boundaries, not like I ever thought. I mean, I can't tell you how many times my mom, love you, mom. My mom's like, you need a gun. You need another gun in the house and whatever. Cause she's like, people are crazy out there. I get that. I've never felt threatened. I mean, I have a big brother-in-law that lives 5 houses away and he's a pretty big fucking dude. I'm not worried about my safety. I don't think I've ever gotten to that point where I'm like, oh my God, this guy is like crossing that line where I was like super concerned. But there's been times where I'm like, okay, you're not respecting my wishes to not talk to you anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So at that point it's, a block is easy.
Yeah.
You know, it's never gotten to like a level that I've had concern, you know?
Yeah.
But again, it's just, I've had friends come to me or I read on social media, like people being like, oh my God, I went on a couple dates with this person. And then I just never heard from them again.
But it could also be a situation where like maybe their ex came back, right? Like, I mean, there's so many things that we don't know about. We don't even know that person, right? So maybe they were in a relationship and they decided to like step out of that relationship and they were single for a little bit, got on the apps, went on a couple dates, and then their ex came back and they're like, I'm going to give this a second go around. But that could be it's still ghosting. I'm not excusing it, but like that could be an example. Or it could be a situation where like they went on a date and then they realized they're not ready emotionally. Like we can't even expect them to even have the courtesy to send a text if they're not emotionally available. But I think at the end of the day, I think what can happen is the dating apps can remove the human component of dating.
Yeah, well, like the normal common courtesy / decency that you give to another human. Do you feel like that apps have muddied that to a point now where even when people are in person with each other, they lose that level of respect that you would have otherwise had if there wasn't apps?
I haven't experienced that. Have you?
I mean, no, I just think people are quicker to, and I feel like we're going to talk about this on another topic.
Yeah.
But I just think people are quicker to disregard and dismiss in a unemotional way because of the way dating has like evolved.
Yeah.
So I feel like, because again, like ghosting for sure was never a thing like when my parents were growing. You know what I mean? Like you courted someone, you couldn't do it. Like you knew each other's families, or like you went to school together, you met organically through friends. Like it just wasn't a thing. I think it just bothers me in this day and age. Like people are just so stuck in the quick that it's like they disregard that as just as quick, you know, without having any sort of compassion for the person. Yeah. Regardless, even if it's one date. I don't know. I just never left, just like you said, I've never left a date. And if I have and I wasn't interested, I'd be like, I think you're super fucking cool. Like, you're an amazing human. You're just not my human. And I've said this before on our pod. Like, I just think you give the respect that you would want to get, you know? And then for it to happen to me, even with that dude, I was like, really not, listen, my feelings were not fucking hurt by any stretch of the imagination. But it's still just like, what? You get a little, it's just, you don't know why someone would do that to me. I just would never do that.
And I would say too, like if you find yourself being one of the ghost ghosters.
Oh, ghosters.
Yeah, the ghosters. Use it as practice, right? Like you're hiding behind your phone. Use it as practice to use your throat and your voice and be able to be like, I had a great time. Like if you already know yourself well enough to know I have a hard time communicating, instead of ghosting someone, just send the text. Google it. ChatGPT. What should I text someone when I went on a first date and I wasn't interested? There you go. Copy and paste.
Yeah,
right? Like, I don't know. It's just going back to like, be kind, treat people how you'd want to be treated, and don't ghost.
Don't ghost.
Yeah.
Ever.
Thank you so much for listening. If you're not following us on YouTube, Instagram,
Facebook,
Spotify, all of that, please be sure to give us a follow.
Thanks.